Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The top stories that we're tracking for you this evening. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran holds after the 12-day war. President Trump dismisses a Pentagon report which claimed the U.S. strikes failed to destroy Iran's nuclear sites. Trump equates the strikes to the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The NATO summit kicks off in Netherlands. European nations endorse increasing their defense budget to 5% of GDP. 26 people killed in a fresh wave of Russian attacks on Ukraine ahead of the summit. Strong global cues lift the Wall Street. The Sensex and the Nifty end their highest closing levels in 2025 so far. IT and FMCG stocks lead the rally. Mukesh Ambani unveils the conglomerate's vision on artificial intelligence in an interview to McKinsey. Says Reliance will not go chasing after GPUs and focus on using existing AI infrastructure to create real-world solutions in healthcare, education, agriculture and energy. Ambani says Jio was the biggest risk he took. Adds that digitizing India would have been the biggest philanthropy for Reliance, even if Jio had failed to take off. NSE offers nearly 1,400 crore rupees to market regulator SEBI to settle the co-location case. Sources say NSE could get the green light for its IPO if the settlement offer is accepted.
3, 2, 1, ignition, and lift off.
After multiple delays, the Axiom 4 space mission lifts off. Captain Shubhanshu Shukla becomes the first Indian in space after 41 years, accompanied by astronauts from US, Hungary and Poland. They're scheduled to dock at the International Space Station by afternoon tomorrow. At least 6 suitors submit bids for bankrupt Jaipash Associates. Sources say Adani, Vedanta and Dalmia Bharat Group are among the bidders. Torrent Power could soon enter power distribution services in Maharashtra. The state's electricity regulator expresses satisfaction to grant approval in Mumbai, Pune and Nagpur. Adani and Tata Power currently the only private power distributors in Mumbai. Tata Motors will run out of rare earth magnets in a few months, but rules out any production cuts just yet. MD Shailesh Chandra expects sub 5% growth in passenger vehicle sales this year, citing a slowdown in urban areas. The Indian government is likely to commit $20 million over 5 years to the global vaccine alliance Gavi. This is well below the $100 million requested by Indian vaccine makers. Industry warns Gavi's financial distress could hurt vaccine exports and production. Gates Foundation commits $1.6 billion to cushion the blow of the US pulling out of the global vaccine alliance. CBSE approves holding Class 10 board exams twice a year in a bid to ease the academic pressure. The second exam is optional and students will be allowed to retain their highest score. Well, let's start with the market action. Positive global cues helping the Wall Street today as the Sensex and the Nifty ended at their highest closing levels in 2025 seen so far. The Sensex up 700 points, 200 points up move there on the Nifty. The mid-cap index was up by about 250 points and the Nifty bank higher by 160 points. So a strong close there for our markets today. But from equities, let's head to the commodity market. Crude oil prices edging higher after declining over 10% in the last 2 days. This after investors assess the ceasefire between Iran and Israel. Growing expectations of an interest rate cut by the US Fed also supported prices. So that's crude for you. A little bit of an uptick there coming in today. But the big story that is moving markets worldwide, the ceasefire between Israel and Iran announced by President Donald Trump appears to be holding for now. Both countries have publicly committed to the truce, and both Tehran and Tel Aviv claim victory after that 12-day war. President Trump also doubled down on his claims that recent US strikes had completely destroyed 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. Now, this comes after an initial intelligence assessment by the Pentagon revealed that the sites had not in fact been destroyed, and Iran's nuclear program has seen only a setback by a few months. Speaking on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Hague, Trump also described the ceasefire, and I quote, as progressing very well, and equated the US strikes in Iran to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, calling it essentially an end to the war.
We're actually getting along with them very well right now. But had we not succeeded with that hit ended the war. That hit ended the war. I don't want to use an example of Hiroshima. I don't want to use an example of Nagasaki. But that was essentially the same thing. That ended that war. This ended that with the war. If we didn't take that out, they'd be fighting right now. They fought like hell, and then they said, let's stop. and they're going to build themselves. And I really see it as sticking. I mean, we may do papers on it, Marco. Maybe we're going to do papers. I don't even know if you need them. They're not going to be fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes, then it's easy to stop them.
Well, that's President Trump there. Now, Israeli forces have killed at least 31 Palestinians in fresh strikes on Gaza. This includes 10 people who were killed while waiting for food at aid distribution points. This comes as health authorities said the number of Palestinians killed in the war has now crossed 56,000. The Israeli armies also confirmed that at least 7 Israeli soldiers were killed in combat in Gaza. At least 26 civilians have been killed in a fresh wave of Russian attacks across Ukraine. Several were injured in the ballistic missile attacks on multiple civilian sites. This comes as Ukrainian President Zelensky sought guarantees at a NATO summit of further Western help to repel Moscow's invasion. European and North American leaders have gathered at The Hague in Netherlands for the NATO summit. The alliance members have endorsed increasing their defense budget to 5% of GDP. President Trump praised the defense spending plan earlier today, speaking to reporters at the summit. He also confirmed his commitment to the alliance's core collective defense promise, which he had initially undermined.
We're with them all the way. I mean, if you take a look at the numbers, we're with them. And they have very big things to announce today. I don't know if you've taken the vote or you're going to take the vote, but I've been asking them to go up to 5% for a number of years, and they're going up to 5%. That's a big, from 2%. And a lot of people didn't even pay the 2%. So I think it's going to be very big news. NATO is going to become very strong with us.
Well, that's President Trump. And the big corporate story back home, Reliance Chairman Mukesh Ambani laid out the group's vision on artificial intelligence. Speaking to McKinsey, Ambani revealed that Reliance will not chase after GPUs and will instead focus on creating real-world solutions. Ambani said the conglomerate has created its own purpose in AI, said, our big purpose is to solve the complex problems before society and create wealth for the nation and the people. For this, we need not go into the high-risk GPU game. Let's do everything downstream, end of quote. Ambani also revealed that Jio was the biggest risk he's taken so far. He said, and I quote, at the time, it was our own money that we were investing, and I was the majority shareholder. Our worst-case scenario was that it might not work out financially because some analysts thought India was not ready for the most advanced technology. But I told my board, in the worst case, we will not earn much return. That's okay because it's our own money. But then, as Reliance, this will be the best philanthropy that will ever have been done in India because we will have digitized India and thereby completely transformed India, end of quote. Speaking about the future, Ambani said he remains confident that Reliance will continue to serve India and humanity well into the future. He also had a word of caution, saying the big challenge will be the confidence of the next gen to succeed in the new landscape. Well, in other corporate news, NSE has submitted a settlement application to the market regulator SEBI to resolve the co-location and dark fiber case. Sources say the exchange has offered a record 1,388 crore rupees to settle the cases. Yash is here with more. Yash.
This is the largest settlement offer put forward to SEBI by any company in the history of Indian capital markets. What we've been given to understand from our sources is that the National Stock Exchange has filed for a settlement application. This is in the co-location matter with market regulator SEBI. The amount or the size of this settlement application is about 1388 crore rupees. As far as this settlement application is concerned, what sources tell us is that it was filed on Friday last week and it is on the desk of market regulator for its consideration. Assuming a situation where the settlement offer, which is in the co-location matter, gets accepted by market regulator SEBI, then in that case, market regulator SEBI's next move would be to give that all-important no objection certificate to NSE, which will enable the exchange to file for the DRHP of its much-awaited IPO. Also, simultaneously, in a situation where the settlement offer gets accepted, SEBI will have to move Supreme Court to withdraw its case against the National Stock Exchange as well. That will happen simultaneously, and once these two things are done, then, of course, it will be a normal IPO process to go about as far as NSE itself is concerned. We've written to the National Stock Exchange on this particular story, but they've declined to comment.
Yash, many thanks. HDFC Bank subsidiary HDB Financial Services IPO was subscribed 37% at the end of day one. The subscription was led by non-institutional investors who booked 76% of the portion allocated to them. The retail portion was subscribed 30%. Tata Motors MD Shailesh Chandra says the company will not cut production just yet and it has enough rare earth magnets to last for a few months. However, he did add that their stock could run out if there are no solutions in the short term. He expects sub 5% growth in passenger vehicle sales this year, citing a slowdown in urban areas. Take a look.
As far as Tata Motors is concerned, I think we are good for the next few months. But beyond that, the stocks will run away definitely. We are quite hopeful with the intervention of the Ministry of Commerce. Also, SIAM and ACMA both are coordinating with the government bodies, and there's a reach out to the ambassador in China also. So I think all these efforts, we are hoping that should yield results and we get some solution. And for mid to long term, we would definitely look for alternatives. But in short term, definitely this issue will be crucial and will have to be resolved.
That's Tata Motors, and the government is set to launch a 1,000 crore rupee scheme to boost domestic production of rare earth magnets. What Shailesh Chandra was talking about. These magnets are crucial components for several industries, especially electric vehicles. The scheme is expected to be finalized in the next 10 to 15 days. This move follows China's decision to restrict the export of rare earth materials. The head of Indian Rare Earth Limited, a public sector undertaking, spoke about the availability of rare earths in India. Take a look.
The India is having heavy mineral of 1,300 million ton of capacity, and out of that, monazite will be around 0.1%. That is 13.115 million, and rare earth will be 6.9 million ton we are having. So, but as per the content of the material, so we are having heavily this lighter rare earth elements. And this heavier part is not available in our resource, which is found only in minuscule or in the ppm level. If you look into our particularly the how India is poised for the heavy rare earth elements, we have to get it either imported or we have to look for the resources like from the hard rock minerals, which is available in India, but that will take a little bit of time.
The Cabinet has cleared the expansion of Pune's Metro Line 2. The extension will undertake at a cost of 3,600 crore rupees. The project will add 12.75 kilometers of track and 30 new stations. The project aims to link central Pune with fast-growing suburbs. At least 6 bidders have submitted resolution plans to acquire the bankrupt Jaipash Associates. Sources tell us the bidders include names like Adani, Vedanta, Dalmia, Bharat, Jindal Power, among others. The National Asset Reconstruction Company had offered to acquire loans of JP Associates for 12,000 crore rupees. Sources say banks will use this as the benchmark to assess the bids. Torrent Power could soon enter power distribution services in Maharashtra. The state's electricity regulator has expressed satisfaction to grant approval in Mumbai, Pune and Nagpur. Remember, Adani and Tata Power are currently the only private power distributors in Mumbai. Vivek joins us now with details. A third private player, Vivek, in the fray now.
That's right, a very interesting, important development as far as the power sector is concerned, and some good news likely as far as consumers are concerned of power companies as well as of supply of electricity itself. So what's actually transpired in the last couple of days is that MERC, which is the Maharashtra Electricity Regulatory Commission, has gone ahead and expressed satisfaction for granting approval to a company called Torrent Power. This is for parallel DISCOM services in 3 key areas. Which are these 3 key areas? Pune, Nagpur as well as Mumbai metropolitan region. What this essentially means is, in case this particular proposal does go through and in case there is no opposition, you would see Torrent Power also as a supplier of electricity in the MMR region along with Pune as well as the third region, which is Nagpur. Now, what has actually transpired is that MERC had received a proposal from Torrent in December 2022. Torrent Power had claimed a capex of close to 15,000 crore for setting up DISCOM services in Maharashtra. After quite a long period, MERC now doesn't have an issue. However, remember, on July 22nd, there will be a final public hearing or a final petition that will be held, which essentially will decide whether or not Torrent Power can go ahead and set up DISCOM services in Maharashtra. What is the implication of this significant development? First, let's have a look at the implication as far as the power space and power companies are concerned. Remember, parallel license distribution basically implies that companies can now look forward to a diversified as well as a steady income stream. Along with that, remember, whenever privatization of DISCOMs has happened, especially if you look at Odisha, Tata Power has seen a steep reduction as far as AT&C losses. So it improves, number one, the network itself, and number two, also improves earnings visibility as far as power companies are concerned. What does it mean for the consumer? Well, it's very simple. For the consumer, you get another option as far as choosing your service provider is concerned, and at most times, higher competition could also mean you get a slightly lower electricity bill in the future.
All right, Vivek, many thanks. Up next on India Business Hour, after multiple delays, the Axiom 4 space mission lifts off. That and more when we return. And you can catch all of CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Jio Hotstar. The Indian government is likely to pledge $20 million over the next 5 years to fund the Global Vaccine Alliance, Gavi. This is well below the $100 million commitment requested by Indian vaccine makers. Now, the industry association warns that any financial distress at Gavi could hurt India's exports and vaccine production. Gavi is facing a funding crunch after the US pulled out of the Vaccine Alliance. In a bid to help offset the shortage, the Gates Foundation has committed $1.6 billion over the next 5 years. Gavi is hoping to raise $9 billion to meet its immunization goals up to 2030. I spoke with Bill Gates in November last year. He said it will be almost criminal to not achieve the $9 billion funding goal to provide vaccines to the world's poorest children. You know, you've got coalitions like Gavi coming up for replenishment. Do you worry that it's just not going to have the funding available or necessary?
Certainly, I do worry about that. I'm, a salesman for Gavi. They've given me a $9 billion quota, and I'm worried that I'm not going to. They're going to fire me, I'm afraid. No, it's a worthy cause. As the foundation looks back on its 25 years, although there have been a lot of amazing things, helping with Gavi, helping to found it and support it, engage with it, is the top of our list. So it would be almost criminal for Gavi not to get fully funded and provide these vaccines to all the world's children.
Well, that's Bill Gates there. And will Gavi meet that $9 billion fundraise target? The big question. Drug makers Bharat Biotech and GSK, meanwhile, have announced that the price of the world's first malaria vaccine will be halved to under $5. The announcement is part of the company's pledge to the Gavi Vaccine Alliance for its 2026 to 2030 phase. The reduced price will come into effect gradually and will be fully implemented by 2028. The big story today, the Axiom 4 space mission carrying Indian astronaut and group captain Shubhanshu Shukla is on its way to the International Space Station. The mission took off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida's Cape Canaveral. The mission had faced multiple delays because of weather and technical issues. In his first message from the mission, group captain Shukla said, and I quote, "This is not the start of my journey, but the start of India's human space program," end of quote. Group Captain Shukla becomes the first Indian in space since Rakesh Sharma in 1984. He will also become the first Indian to visit the International Space Station. Group Captain Shukla is being accompanied by astronauts from the US, Hungary and Poland. They will spend 2 weeks at the International Space Station, which is a permanent research facility orbiting the Earth at an altitude of 400 kilometers. Group Captain Shukla's parents watched the liftoff this morning. And of course, from President Murmu to Prime Minister Modi, political leaders cutting across party lines, extending their wishes to the mission.
3, 2, 1, ignition, and lift off.
मेरे कंधे पे मेरे साथ मेरा तिरंगा है जो मुझे बता रहा है कि नहीं हूँ, मैं आप सबके साथ हूँ। आइए हम सब मिलकर भारत के इस ह्यूमन स्पेस प्रोग्राम की जर्नी की शुरुआत करें। धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
बहुत बड़ा गर्व है हमारे लिए आज का दिन, जो इतिहास में याद रखा जाएगा। बात अभी हुई थी, अभी सुबह हुई थी, निकलने के पहले बात किया था हम लोगों से कि मैं निकल रहा हूँ मम्मा। बात करके गए हैं आज।
बात करके गए हैं?
हाँ, आशीर्वाद लेके गए हैं, दही पेड़ा खिलाया, वो खा के गए हैं दूर से।
To the crew, Godspeed, and spend as much time as possible to look out of the window.
Well, the Axiom 4 mission will take 28 hours to reach the International Space Station. The spacecraft is expected to dock tomorrow afternoon, India time. The mission is being carried out using a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. It's in fact completed 16 missions so far, carrying astronauts to space. It has a perfect safety record. Axiom 4 is a big step towards India's Gaganyaan mission, which aims to send a crewed mission to space. ISRO is coordinating with NASA, and Captain Shukla will conduct crucial research to facilitate the Gaganyaan mission. So what exactly will Group Captain Shukla do in space? Well, he will study the cognitive effect of screen use, microbial adaptation, muscle atrophy and crop resilience in microgravity, among other things. We will, of course, be tracking that story closely here. Indian origin New York Assemblyman Zoran Mamdani is poised to become the Democratic nominee for New York's mayor. Political veteran Andrew Cuomo conceded defeat after Mamdani secured 43.5% of the vote. The general election for the next mayor of New York will be held on the 4th of November.
In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done. My friends, we have done it. I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York.
And he does have an Indian connection. He is filmmaker Meera Nair's son. Now, whether it's good old filter coffee or any of the range of new age instant coffee mixes, India is a major exporter of the beverage to the world, and it wants to climb up the rankings from the current number 5 position. Abhimanyu Sharma reports that the industry is on a war footing as it deals with challenges like labour shortage and climate change, even as it looks to expand its footprint in the developed world. Take a look.
This is a typical coffee plantation in India's coffee capital of Coorg. Almost 40% of India's coffee is produced in these hill slopes from plantations that sprawl over 1 lakh hectares. This makes Coorg the largest coffee producing region in India, and Karnataka, where Coorg is located, accounts for roughly 70% of India's total coffee production. Locals tell me numerous plantations have spread out and new ones have come up in the last decade or so. Not surprising, since coffee exports from India have seen a 40% year-on-year growth in FY25 and clocked over 22% annual growth rate in the past 5 years.
It's more than threefold increase in from 2014-15 to 2024-25 in terms of exports. And also various new markets, new countries were also explored during this period. More than 20 countries were added.
All this has made India the world's 7th largest producer of coffee with a 3.5% share of global production and the 5th largest exporter with a 5% share in global exports. India is also one of the few countries that produces both Arabica and Robusta varieties of coffee. The relatively sweeter and smoother Arabica is used in filter coffee, while the high caffeine Robusta is used in instant coffee mixes due to its strong and bitter taste. But the Indian coffee industry wants more, starting with expanding production beyond Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu.
The government is planning to increase the overall cultivation of coffee into newer geographies within India itself, which will include states like Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and the northeast.
The European Union is also being targeted as a market that's ripe for Indian coffee. But this means conforming to the European Union's rules and standards of production. To this end, India is engaging with local exporters to ensure compliance with the European Union's upcoming deforestation regulation. It is also negotiating with the EU to rework some of the guidelines. For instance, the European Union's deforestation regulation's definition of forests does not include the area of the total tree canopy. So several plantations in India, Indonesia, Malaysia and Brazil become ineligible to export their product to the European Union. India feels this is not in line with globally recognized definitions. Another guideline is that companies must ensure the products exported to the 27-nation bloc be grown on land that has not been deforested after the 31st of December 2020. India is confident that it will be compliant with the European regulation and has already begun taking steps to close any gaps. And coffee growers say the use of sustainable cultivation practices will help. So too will the fact that India is categorized as a low-risk country under the European regulation when compared to global competitors. But increasing exports will also mean higher production. And here, there are some fierce challenges ranging from absence of skilled manpower to climate change.
The temperatures have gone up and the rainfall has become very erratic. It rains when we don't want it. It doesn't rain when we require it badly. In India, coffee is a very labor-intensive crop. 65% of my cost of cultivation is labor input. Whereas if you go to a country like Brazil, it's just 25%. There is a scarcity of labor, skilled labor, especially people who are earlier working here. They want to migrate to cities.
For India, the opportunities in coffee are surging. There's increased demand for value-added Indian coffees in premium markets like Japan, South Korea and the Middle East. And Indian Robustas are increasingly finding favor for users in espressos in the developed world. But India has work to do before it can grab the opportunities with both hands. In Coorg, this is Abhimanyu Sharma for CNBC TV 18.
And you can catch your favorite brew and all the CNBC TV 18 news updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X and Geo Hotstar. All of that is available for you. And of course, do visit us on CNBC TV 18 Access and CNBC TV 18 Prime. From all of us here for now, goodbye and many thanks for watching.